I'm going to do an update video here. So I put all the leaves in this yard like I said I would. This is in Montreal. And most of the yards on the street are identical, pretty close to looking like this. You can see there was this dyed red mulch, which is an atrocity. However, I used it to denote the path, and I just recently returned from a 10-day Vipassana meditation session in Montreal here in Quebec. When I got back, the leaves were in the path, a thin layer that had continued to fall, and you can see in the trees are mostly gone at this point. So I just raked them back into these piles, so that way the red mulch denotes where the path is. And there's plastic underneath. So next spring when I plant, I'll just tear holes wherever I plant, and that'll be that. So this is a good example of carbon stacking. Stacking these leaves up into the berms where eventually I'll plant. It'll become very juicy. I like to say like baking a cake. So you're putting your nutrients in there, using what's already there instead of bringing in raw material or paying for soil and mulch that's in plastic bags, for example, which is not what you want to do. This is all free raw material. I harvested it from the street, and they come and clean the streets every so often. You see these big piles here which are getting ready to get cleared out. So what I just did was I took all these bags from the neighbors and everything that was nearby, and what I'll do is I'll take these and I'll toss them into the yard, and I will dump all the leaves onto these berms. But first, there's two things I could do. I could either rake back the large part of the berm and take these brown paper bags and then tear them up and lay them flat on the bottom like you would with cardboard for sheet mulching. That helps prevent things from growing. In this case, we already have plastic. So it might be actually easier to simply roll them up and stuff them in. Because now that this has been established for a few weeks, there's insects and other critters that are using it as a home and as a resource. So we don't necessarily want to disturb it too much. I just pull up from the edges and throw it on top. So everything underneath is staying there. And this is stuff I just found in the street. So I'll chop that up and it'll become part of these mounds. I'll just stuff it in. Usually when I open the top from the top this way and then back that way to create a trough across the top, and then I stuff in more carbon, in this case wood, which is ideal for our hugelkultur. Hugel just means wood in German, H-U-G-E-L. And I'll show you this over here. I already spoke to the neighbor about, I trimmed this apple tree and did some very basic maintenance over here. I also asked if I could come over because, as you can see, these leaves have filled in, and then I will sweep them and rake them all and create, I'll stack some carbon along this edge underneath this tree, so it'll be nice and juicy for the spring, and tuck it in for the winter as well. Because just like using wood chips, using mulch to kind of tuck the tree in around the edges to protect the base of the tree, and they really like that. So yep, this will all go in. And look, instead of what I was going to do was what I did before, was just take all this mulch and rake it into a trash barrel and then pull the trash barrel over and over again, which I could still do. Okay. But instead, look, the neighbors did all the work for me because they think they're doing the right thing by removing leaves. But remember, that's not what you want to do. If you want to see butterflies, and it's not just butterflies and the things that we like, but all the other insects that contribute to the ecosystem that are the main food source for a lot of other critters in the food chain. That's a huge problem if folks haven't been made aware of that yet, that the insects are disappearing. And the reason I had to make this video now is because there's still sufficient light, and tomorrow it's supposed to snow. In fact, it's starting to snow right now, but we're supposed to get quite a bit of snow. So you see how this naturally turned into, this didn't start off as kind of a divot here. It was just a straight line, but then naturally, because of this path around the tree, it just became as such. So I simply route around the trees, and then I might create a path here, but I like to have the leaves, the kind of smushed into where this fence is, so that way nothing will leak out. I mean, of course, some of it will, but it helps maintain all the water from flowing off the property, because there is a slight slope that comes downhill towards the sidewalk. Now, along the edge here, ideally you put a French drain and or a pipe in there, because it does slope towards the foundation, which is, you don't want that, right? And we also don't want roots growing here. Ideally, you have a root barrier next to the French drain along the edge. A root barrier is simply a thin plastic, almost like a landscaping barrier that is just really thin, and then maybe 12 inches to 24 inches. So ideally a full meter, 18 inches, or half a meter, or large, or taller than that. So I will trim these back even more. I was just kind of, I didn't want to do too much, because I wanted to show the landlord what it looks like and how a lot of this more can be done. But when you show people this stuff, they get very freaked out when you see how much you chop. But it should survive, and well, it will survive. There's no reason these won't survive. And this birch will be nice to grow something up. Scarlet runner bean, I mentioned, perhaps something permanent like a grape. But the colors of the flowers really pop against this white birch skin with the black here. It's quite beautiful. So that's all. I just want to do an update. This is the second video. I'll make use of all this raw material that's for free, been given to me. Well, I had to, spend 30 minutes. Some of these bags are pretty heavy. Had to carry them one by one. But this yard is looking so much better. You can see a defined path using this atrocious dyed red mulch, which I'll do away with. But for now, it shows the design of the space. And it can change. It doesn't necessarily have to, but it probably will. Often though, when I make a design, it ends up being something close to what it will be. And the path, having a path to walk around, and eventually some chairs to sit in here and enjoy the space. So that's that. Montreal, Quebec. This is the Plateau. I'm hashtag Jimmy Leaf Tender. That's facebook.com/Jimmy Leaf Tender, as well as on YouTube. Thanks for watching. And I hope you're busy in your yard before the snow falls. This is a great time to make your piles so they can sit over the winter and become juicy. Have a good one.